Hello and welcome everyone to another tutorial for Farming Sim 25. Um, Major shout out goes to Ingy for this as a mere suggestion. He personally asked me some of the settings I told him. I says, well, it's a little too much to text, so this video is going to be dedicated to him and all of you new farmers that may have never played any of the farm sim simulators. So, I'm going to show you my recommended settings. Now, mind you, this is going to be based off of what your PC can handle. If you have a pretty beefy PC like I do, then you should have no problem running any of my settings. So, first, we're going to go to options. And I'm also going to be going over game settings as well. We're going to go down to display. I have mine set to ultra. Frame limit to whatever. I have a gaming curve monitor, so I run it at 240. Um, in-game HUD, I just leave pretty much all this. I just changed the frame rate from, I think the default is 60. I changed it to 240, but that all depends on what your monitor can run. But by default, it's usually 60. So we're gonna hit the space bar. I have mine ultra custom. Um, and again, this is gonna depend on how beefy your PC is. So, pretty much all this stays the same. Your object draw distance, foliage draw distance. You can change this if you want. Uh, I left mine at the ultra setting. Same thing with resolution, scaling 3D. Shader quality I have set to very high. Shading rate is set very high. Screen space shading rate. Um, so what that is, it's optimizes performance based on luminance and velocity for a slight loss of visual. So I have it off because this is probably going to not be a good setting for some. Um, Screen space reflections, I have it on ultra. Obviously, I like to have the best graphics out there. Screen space shadows, I have that on. SSAO quality. So what SSAO is, it explains it right here. Adjust the screen space, ambient, occlusion, quality. I have it set to low. You could set this to however you want. Atmosphere quality determines level of detail and computational demand for rendering clouds and sky hues. As the quality increases, the clouds and sky color becomes more intricate and accurate. So, pretty much it just makes your sky and clouds look 10 times better. Uh, Volumetric fog is very foggy on Ultra, which is realistically accurate because in real life, when it gets foggy, you have a hard time seeing. So I'm glad they introduced that. Uh, Cloud shadows I do have on, which is very cool because you could be farming and you'll see just like in real life when the clouds are shifting, some sunlight will poke through a cloud and you'll see that little tiny bit of sunlight just go along with the cloud and the wind. Um, Terrain quality, I have mine set to the top, but again, by performance, whatever graphics card, I recommend turning it down if you're using anything lower than a 2060. Let's just put it out there. Um, Texture resolution, same thing. If you start noticing if you've got like a low end graphics card, you might want to knock that down a notch. Texture filtering, I haven't messed with this yet. I'm leaving it at default. Lighting quality, obviously ultra. Lens flare, I have off. Um, Not really too keen on lens flare, so that's why it's off. Um, Shadow quality is set to very high. Again, this is going to be a big one. Um, if you have a lower end PC, you'll want to drop that. It will help you with performance. Um, Shadow distance quality I have set to high. Again, if you need to knock this down, if you start noticing some stuttering in the game, which there is a graphics glitch right now, so even people with high end PCs, Drake, CJ, myself, and everybody else that's playing this, there is a graphics glitch right now. That is not anything on you. Giants is currently working on a patch to fix that. So don't freak out if you start seeing your screen flicker. Just don't freak out. It's not you. Soft shadows I have on. Shadow map filtering I have set to high. So what that does, it pretty much self-explanatory. Adjust the quality of shadows for you lower end PC people out there. I would suggest lowering this if you start noticing your game is running a little rough. Foliage shadows, I have that on. Realistic beacon lights, I highly recommend this for everybody. Turn that on because if you don't, then it's not going to be as bright. It's not going to look as good. Highly recommend that one right there. All this is set by default except for max mirrors. I have set to 7. Now, this will also impact your performance if you are running anything below probably a 2060. You'll probably want to knock this down a couple numbers. So this is your mirrors, so you can see actually like what's behind you or off to your side or whatnot. So by lowering this, will help your performance too if you're running lower end graphics cards. So I left max tire tracks on. Again, you can turn this down if you're having performance issues. Multi sampling, anti aliasing. I think I said that right. I have that. It's automatically set by default 8 times. Same thing with post. That's set to default to TAA. DLSS. I have off, and I recommend you keep that off. Same thing with these next two. I don't really use those. Super resolution 3 and off. Intel XESS. I have that off by default. Sharpness by default is 1.0. A lot of this is default stuff. So that goes for the graphics. For gameplay, general settings, you definitely want to have this on if you're playing with a steering wheel or controller. You need to have this on unless you're playing strictly keyboard mouse, which big kudos to you. I could not do keyboard mouse on this game. I do have eye track, like head tracking. I have track IR, so I have that on. I've not used it yet. Force feedback, you'll adjust this to your liking. Invert, if y'all are using the controller, this is where you invert your controls. I turn my volume master down about 50% because when you're in third person view in tractors, it the engines sound remarkable, but the game is loud. Now, if you're driving first person mode, it's not as loud, but I personally recommend 50%. Um, Music is off, especially when I'm streaming or doing content. Vehicle volume, I have set to 50 as well. Environment volume, I turn that down just a notch to 70%. Character volume, 70%. Radio volume, 100%. When I'm not streaming, I'll listen to the radio. Um, don't get these two mixed up, the radio and music. Music is your menu. Music, pretty much. The GUI volume, which is your menu sounds. I have that knocked down to 50%. Um, Game volume, while not in focus, I just have that off. Um, I have not messed with these two, but in the Farm Sim server that I have, I just went ahead and checked voice input mode off, so that way there's not an echo when we're in Discord, or if you're playing with your friends via Discord, or whatever you use to get with your friends with. I definitely recommend turning off your in-game chat. Let's see. So this is all your default controls, obviously. So we don't really need to go over that. So let's go ahead and back up. So now I'm gonna fire up my game real quick. I love this game, by the way. The load time is a little bit quicker. Especially, I highly recommend, it's not required, but I highly recommend installing this game. I installed it on my SSD drive, solid state drive. The load time is just a hair bit quicker. I think you're going to see in the gaming world that a lot more games are going to require that, whether you're on console. I know for Xbox, for sure, a lot of the newer games require that. Alright. So, just a recommendation. You don't have to do that. So now we're in game. So now we're going to go to game settings. Alright. I have my autosave interval set to every 5 minutes. You don't have to do this, but for me, I'm always one. If I set it for longer, I always forget to save because I get so busy, and I just leave. And then guess what? Shit. Time scale, I have it to real time. I highly recommend using, for those more serious players, this will slow the time down a lot. Like, it takes longer to get through the day, which is good. That's what we want, because you want time to be able to cultivate your fields, plow it, lime it, seed it, all of the above. Economic difficulty, I have mine set to easy. It will affect by however you adjust this. You either get more or get less. But the higher you go up, the less you get. So just keep that in mind. Traffic is on. Now with this, like in the server, when I first started getting tractors and stuff, I shut the traffic off because there's some very narrow roads in there, and I feel like sometimes the cars just get in your way, right? So, but playing by myself, I leave it on. Kind of gives you a little bit more of a realistic feel, as if you're, say, cultivating or plowing or even harvesting a field, and you come up to the edge of your field, which is next to the road. You got to turn around. You got to wait for the traffic to pass. Seasonal growth, I recommend keeping that on. I like that. By default, your days per month is set to 1. Now, if you're not so much serious farmer, leave it, I guess, as is. For me, I like to set it for 3 days. Personally, that way it gives you a little bit longer to um prep your fields, plant it, have it grow. Um but you can go all the way to 28 days if you choose to. Depending on how into it you really want. I feel like 28 days at real time is too long. Um, so with real time and 3 days, you should be able to be okay. Fixed visual month, I shut that off. I did not like that how it worked in 22, so I'm not even gonna mess with it. And here it could be different. I don't know. If it is, somebody please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section of this video. I do have snow turned on, which the snowfall looks beautimous. Now we come down to crops and growth. I have crop destruction off, which if you turn that on, which it's on by default, if I'm not mistaken, whether or not vehicles can destroy crops when you drive over them. Now, if you really want to be realistic, turn it on. But for people like me who get tractors stuck and submerged tractors and whatnot, yeah, I turned it off. Periodic plowing, I highly recommend this to be off. Um, for those more serious farmers that really, really, I mean, full blown get into this game, keep it on because that's normally on by default. It'll just give you a better yield. Excuse me. Field stones I leave on. I like rock picking. Lime required. Another feature I like to keep on. That way your fields will be required to have lime on it. Weeds I turn off. Weeds are freaking annoying. I used to hate that as a kid, having to go out. My parents and grandparents would make me go outside and weed the yard, like especially the flower bed, the edge of the driveways and stuff. Like it was, yeah. So I leave that off. Disaster destruction. I have not run into a disaster yet as far as weather. Uh, I've had a little bit of snow. I've seen a little bit of snow, a little bit of rain, but I've not seen a tornado yet. I highly recommend leaving this on. I think this will be a fun feature. I mean, what that does, it defines if the destruction is active on a disaster. So if a tornado comes through, it's gonna tear your shit up. uh, Point blank. Vehicle control area. I have dirt set to normal, so your tractors do get dirty in this game. And also, if you have dirt on your boots and you go into the tractor and you go into first person mode, it's going to show boot prints on the floor. So I would leave that by default. It's set to normal. Automatic engine start by default is on. I have it off to make it a little more realistic, to make it look like I'm actually turning the key and turning the tractor on. Stop and go brake. Um, I leave that on by default. Trailer fill limit. Um, you know what? I have not messed around with that yet. I have it off by default. Fuel usage I have set to normal. AI workers, I really am not big fan of the AI. I really wasn't a fan of them in 22, and so far in this one, I'm not a big fan of them either. So I leave all that to default, but you just mess with it as you see fit. But yes, so that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. And then you toy around with the stuff and figure out what works best for you. Uh, if for instance the fieldstone, rock picking, and lime required, if you are super new to farm sim and you feel like this is too much for you, just check it off. And then once you get used to doing the basics and familiarize yourself with it, turn it back on. Um, uh, Weeds, I would just personally keep that off. Uh, I just don't like weeds. Like they're annoying, plain and simple. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this video. I hope this tutorial helps you out. And again, Ingy, thank you for the suggestion. Um, and looking forward to seeing people get out there and get on the farm again. And stay tuned. We will be live again on our Farm Sim server here, hopefully here in a couple days. I got to get with a few people and finish up having them pick their fields and whatnot. But that is going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. Take care and see you all out there on the field.